Activist. What comes to mind for you when you hear that word? Do you think of people sitting on the road, blocking traffic? Do you think of people standing, marching, holding signs? Do you know somebody who's been arrested? Does it remind you of possibly a tricky conversation you've had with your kids or your grandkids who have joined a youth strike? Does it make you feel a bit uncomfortable? Activist. It's a bit of an edgy word, right? Here's something I don't think you do think about. People in suits. Because it's a contradiction. Business is a big part of the problem, right? So how can people in business also be activists? Well, to all the business people out there, this is a time for us to be thinking about our power to be a part of the change. Because it's not just possible to be a business activist. Right now, it's needed. So let me take you to the moment where this really came alive for me, okay? I was invited to be on a panel at a big corporate event, lots of suits in the audience, and the question we were asked was, in the field of sustainability, when and how should entrepreneurs also be activists? It's a good question, right? Well, I have to say, as an entrepreneur working in this space, I answered that question as best I could. And then afterwards, I thought, wait a minute. Maybe I need to better understand what it is to be an activist. Now, here's a little bit about me. I am much more of a natural rule follower than a rebel. But the scary climate science has made me start to question whether our current rules are really cutting it. So here I am. It is a spectacular spring morning, 2019, and I find myself early in the morning on Waterloo Bridge. And the sky is this incredibly stunning color of blue. And I'm surrounded by what feels like hundreds of people. Some are waving brightly colored flags, they're flapping in the wind. Others are handing out stickers and badges. And I'm there, and I have no idea what to do. And then these drums start playing. And I can't explain it other than to say it just feels like I'm full of electricity and I'm feeling absolutely connected to all these people on the bridge, even though I've never seen them before. And over the days and the weeks and the months that follow, I'm linking arms with some moms that I know from the school run, and we're holding up banners we made the night before while our kids were playing behind us. In Trafalgar Square and standing right up to police, feeling really strong. And then I'm in Oxford Circus, and I'm handing out cut pieces of cucumber on a super hot day while these protesters are dancing around a bright pink boat. It's totally surreal, right? And then I'm getting yelled at to go get a job. And I have to hold my tongue because I kind of want to yell back, I have an MBA from Harvard. And then I'm feeling challenged because some of these activations are going too far. And I'm getting nervous because I'm not understanding all of what these protesters want to do, and I don't agree with it. And I'm getting scared because I don't want to be arrested. Now, it feels right to be out there, like I'm doing something and like I'm part of something, but I'll tell you, it's hard at home when you're driving in your car and you're Son in the back seat starts to cry when news of the protests come on the radio. And you ask him, what's going on? And he says, Mom, I'm sad and I don't know why. Or when your husband, who you love and who absolutely loves you too, and who absolutely also agrees that there is a climate emergency, but he doesn't agree with the approach of some of the protesters because he thinks it's putting blame on others rather than on ourselves. When he says to you that if you do get arrested, he's not going to bail you out. And you believe him. But you both understand the massive amount of privilege you have because you have a whole lineup of friends that you know would. So these are hard things to overcome, my friends, but I'll tell you what is harder is the realization that as someone who works in business, I am complicit in the system I am protesting against. I benefit from it. I live in a nice house, in a nice neighborhood, I drive a nice hybrid electric car, and I'm a hypocrite. I still eat meat, and I still sometimes forget to use my reusable cup. And despite my best of intentions, I know I'm using products and services that are part of the problem. Unfortunately, the way our systems are set up right now, it's nearly impossible not to be a hypocrite. And that's because, for the most part, businesses run in pursuit of profit, no matter what the cost to people and the planet. It's not working. It's killing us. We can feel it, and we know we need to do something. We need to do something for the beauty of this earth. We need to do something for our health, both our physical and our mental well-being. We need to do something for our kids. And let's be clear, I don't mean my kids, or your kids, or your kids. I mean our collective kids. And so that we can answer them when they ask us, what did we do when we knew? And yeah, we need to do something for business, because you know what? There is no business on a burning planet. So here's the dilemma. This system's not going to fix itself, which is why we need people in business, people on the inside to be part of this change. Now, I recently took on this really great new job at B-Lab UK as an activist in residence. And that job's all about exploring what this new frontier of leadership in business looks like when businesses engage in activism, building bridges between companies and movements. Now, B-Lab, as many of you may know, is the organization that certifies B Corps, for-profit businesses that operate to deliver returns to both shareholders and stakeholders. We, I'm sure, have quite a few of them in the room today. I know John from Volans is here. And in this role that I have, I've had the chance to capture and learn so many interesting stories of where businesses are engaging, where they're activating. Companies that are supporting people to engage in movements, like the search engine Ecosia, which pays the legal fees for their employees that are arrested due to nonviolent civil disobedience. And Finisterre, a UK clothing brand that hosted an ocean activist training camp as part of their C7 campaign, which happened at the same time as the G7 here in the UK. But it's not just about getting people into these movements and onto the streets. Some businesses are doing their thing by taking a stand on the issues that matter to them. Patagonia recently pulled its products from a high-end resort in Jackson Hole when they caught wind that that resort had hosted a right-wing conference. And Patagonia also supports and funds bold, direct action organizations that are focused on root cause of the environmental crisis. Now, other businesses are joining forces, engaging in ambitious coalitions and collectives that are focused on changing the rules of the game, changing entire industries. Tribe Impact Capital is working with others to amend the company law and to challenge accounting practices because, as Peter Backer wrote in the Harvard Business Review, accountants will save the world. Now, there are three things that have become clear in these conversations with these activist businesses. When they really believe that we all must move faster, aim higher, dig deeper, and act much more effectively together as a movement of movements to address the climate emergency. They also recognize that there is this really important line. This is about business as a tool for activism, not activism as a tool for business. They also have a really exquisite focus, crystal clear on doing the things that are needed. What the science is telling us is needed. They're not limited by the things that simply feel possible. Now, this is important because business has power. Increasingly, we're seeing governments look to business for permission. What businesses do and say matters. And I've recently been reminded of the Peter Parker principle. Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Business and people in business have a responsibility and an opportunity to use their power as a force for good, to drive change, to be on the right side of history, to make history, and to bring others along with them. Now, you might be thinking, hey, I work in a good company. I have good sustainability programs and ESG. Well, that's good. But ask yourself, is it good enough for what the science is telling us we need to do? Now, let's go back to the word we started with, activist. Activist. In essence, to me, an activist is someone who acts, who takes action, who activates to direct change. I like to think it's someone who stands up, stands for a change they want to see. It starts by understanding our power and what we want to do with it, and then choosing what kind of activism you want to be engaged in. How do you decide what is good and what is bad activism? That's a call that you can make. I use science as my North Star. It does not mean you have to get arrested. But it does mean you need to face up and be willing to speak up some pretty uncomfortable truths, because problems cannot be fixed unless we acknowledge them. And it can be risky to call that out. It can have real career and social risk, but my friends, the risk of not doing anything at all is far greater. Now, if you're feeling fired up and you're thinking, I want to be a business activist, I want to be an activist in residence, what can you do? Be bold. In every single meeting, in every single conversation you find yourself in, bring up the climate emergency. Be inspired by these other activist businesses, those that are finding ways to support their people to engage, that are taking a stand, that are joining with others to change the rules and to change entire industries. Invite in some activists and listen to them. And experience that electricity on the street and bring others along with you. You might not get it right. I certainly haven't. And I have been criticized by both sides. But I'll tell you what I find more unbearable than making a mistake. Being criticized is not doing anything at all. Now, finding others can make this easier. Those with a similar desire to act, they can hold you when things get tough, and it will. But you're not alone. And it's okay to be scared, because this is scary stuff. I'm scared. But what is not okay is to sit back and do nothing in this moment that really, really matters. It's hard. But as people in business know, it's when things are hard that we go into new areas. And we need to go to those new areas now. Because if it were easy or safe, we would have already done it. Now, I am hopeful, because around the world, I am seeing people in business waking up, standing up, and acting up. And I'm inspired by this word from botany that I learned a few years ago, heliotropy. It literally means to turn towards the sun. And I see a field of sunflowers, and as that sun crosses the sky, they follow it, moved by its warmth, its light, and its positivity. But sunflowers don't just float up into the clouds. Sunflowers are radical. Radical in the origin of that word, which is rooted. They are deeply rooted to the ground from which they grow from. So I think we need to all take inspiration from these sunflowers. I think we must find ways to be hopeful and optimistic about the change we know we need to make, and we must be rooted to the ground, rooted to the science, and rooted to the urgency to act now. It is hard, but it is not a contradiction. This is about being both in business and an activist. So join me. Get on your real or metaphorical power suits, and then get ready to add a little bit of color and a little bit of activist edge. You will not regret it.